welcome back. Sorry, can we turn that down a little bit? Like, is it just me, or is London particularly loud? Like a tad more. Perfect. My first London culture shock episode is one of my more popular vlogs, and it needs a follow-up as there were plenty of items that didn't make the first edit. So today we're exploring 10 bizarre things about life in London, according to me. As we move through today's episode, please feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section. Do you agree? Have you had similar or different experiences? Or maybe you have some insight as to why things are the way that they are here in London and the UK. Let's get started. KingSize beds, not made equal across the globe. This is a king-size bed. This is also a king-size bed. We were quite surprised to find that most London flats come equipped with a double bed. A UK double bed is only a couple centimeters thinner than a Canadian double. I'll also bring your attention to the fact that there's no UK queen size bed. A couple of centimeters doesn't sound like a big deal, but most Canucks stop sleeping in double beds after we move out of our parents' homes or residence at uni. I've spent most of my adult life sleeping in a queen size bed, and then Eric and I upgraded to a king when we purchased our first home. It was very exciting. So much space. Move here, find ourselves a flat with a king size bed, only to realize that we've reverted back to our early 20s and we're now sleeping on a mattress that is a couple centimeters shy of a Canadian queen. Shocking? Yeah, for us it was. Understandable? Yeah. Bedrooms in London don't have nearly the same square footage. So we've gotten used to calling what to us is a sub-queen size bed a king. And as I mentioned in part 1, there have been several words, pronunciations, and commonly used phrases that have required some adjustment. One in particular has made me wish I could go back to my youth, trying to speak Spanish in a Spanish-speaking country. ¿Dónde está el baño? You see, it's one word. Very simple. The first time I said, "Excuse me, can you tell me where the bathroom is?" I was met with a prolonged stare and a finger pointing me in the right direction. Next time I tried, "Sorry, where's the loo?" and had to repeat myself 3 times. So that didn't work. Finally, I've landed on the most frequently used term, toilet. As a Canadian who typically uses words like bathroom, washroom, restroom to vaguely describe the place where private activities occur, asking a perfect stranger where I might specifically find the toilet for the specific purpose of using the toilet feels dirty. Language is funny that way. Most of the time we say toilet here in London and it makes me uncomfortable, but it's direct and straight to the point, much like London itself. Something else that initially made me laugh uncomfortably is a particular segment on a particular news channel's breakfast program. I must also mention here the concept of a TV license, a specific fee that you must pay yearly to so much as turn on your television, regardless of whether or not you are using cable services, or risk threatening letters and a fine of up to £1,000. That came as a bit of a surprise. The first time that I observed the standard morning political interview on this particular news channel, I was so enthralled with the investigative techniques being used that I allowed my tea to get cold. For me, the shock element was in the enthusiasm that news anchors approach these interviews with. It also seems to me that regular television appearances are just part of the politician job description here in the UK. It's actually quite different than Canada, and I like it. It's sort of a demand for transparency. News anchors aren't the only ones laying it on thick here. The butter to bread or cracker or pastry ratio here, for some, not all, it's caused me to do a double take. I first saw this on one of our favorite London-based YouTube foodie channels and then just couldn't stop seeing it. It's not that butter is the enemy in Canada. We use plenty of it. It's just that it's not usually the star of the dish. And now that I think about it, I think I've been socialized to go easy on the butter. I've had some of the best tasting butter, creams, cheeses here in the UK. The difference is noticeable. And so is our income to housing cost ratio now that we live in London. The income to rent ratio here typically falls somewhere between 30 to 50%, depending on where you live. The mere fact that we transitioned from homeowners to first-time renters in a city where the majority of people rent came as a huge adjustment. If you've been following this channel for a while, you've heard me talk about our renting woes. And if you haven't, there's a button for that. The cost of living in London is high, and it's only getting higher. But I've been assured by people who've moved here and still live here that we will eventually get used to it. I really hope that's true. Typically, space is limited here in London, so if you're lucky, your monthly rent may give you access to an in-suite laundry facility, just one. I'm sure there are individuals out there who have access to separate washing and drying appliances. Good for you. But for the rest of us, we've got one of these. Meet your brand new to you used washer and dryer. Just open the door, toss in your clothes, a detergent capsule, some antibacterial laundry sanitizer because smells are inevitable when you wash and dry things in the same unit. With just one turn of the dial, you'll have clean clothes in approximately 3 to 4 hours. You can hang the results for extra freshness or wear them right away for that tropical feel. In part 1 of London Culture Shocks, I spoke about the unique sense of humor that I've encountered here. Well, I've also noticed that banter is sometimes accompanied by the creative combination of or liberal use of certain curse words. One in particular that just really isn't generously used in Canada always makes my ears perk up. If you don't bring good walking shoes with you to London, you will be cursing your way through Bank Station, and not just because you took the wrong exit. I've mentioned that we recently moved from the Canary Wharf area to Ealing, and in both locations, everything that you need is just down the road. But even with that, I cannot get over the amount of walking we do here. The walking culture here is likely in part due to the fact that most people rely on public transport. It's often cheaper, faster, and just more pleasant to walk from one location to another, especially on a sunny day. Sure, you might wear out some shoes, you might get a few blisters, but there are some perks to living that walking life in London. Sometimes you stumble upon something like this. What? Eric works in central London, and I've managed to see this before him. You never know what's around the corner. While walking through the streets of London, it's impossible to ignore the variety of accents and languages spoken around you. I knew that London was multicultural, but the extent of London's diversity is such that nearly everybody has an accent. I've never really experienced this before. It's also fascinating to me that English accents can vary even just within the confines of London. I suspect it will take me a very long time to be able to discern the differences between English accents and UK accents, if ever. This really isn't a goal I strive to achieve, but maybe one day. Similarly to my inability to tell the difference between received pronunciation, Cockney, and estuary English accents, my Canadian accent, which I have become acutely aware of in the past year, is often confused for an American one. Oh, are you visiting from America? No. Being confused for our neighbors to the south obviously doesn't happen in our home country. So this is more of a shock of living abroad rather than a specific London culture shock. Nonetheless, it happens here all the time, at least monthly, particularly in pubs, like always in the pub. Sure, there are differences here in London compared to what I'm used to, but that's part of the charm of living here. When you decide to move abroad, learning how to adjust to culture shocks is part of the job description. Some moves will be harder than others, and that's okay. Thank you for joining me for part 2 of London Culture Shocks. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.